Welcome to the Career Coffee Chat podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Urban, certified career strategist and executive coach, removing career roadblocks so you can achieve more impact, influence, and income.
You might have to be a certain type of person to lead effectively. That's not the case. Anyone can lead. No charisma, no extroversion required. You don't have to be an influencer. You don't even have to be good at public speaking. None of that is required for you to be a great leader. So if you think you have to be a certain type of person to lead, think again. It's time to debunk that myth that's really not helpful for you if you're seeking leadership, and I would have to argue that almost everybody is a leader. I want to help you rise up and step into leadership. So I'm very excited to hear what Jamie Lewis Smith, Ph.D., so Dr. Jamie, she said she doesn't want to be called that, but I'm going to call that anyway because it takes time and energy to get a Ph.D. So I'm really excited what she has to say about authentic leadership and how to also avoid some of those common pitfalls that snag people early when they're emerging leaders and seasoned leaders, to be honest with you. So even if you've been leading for a while and you're like, I got this, chances are you might not, have all of it. So let's talk and see about some of those myths that might be getting in your way of being the most effective leader you can. So whether you're new to leadership or looking for ways to stand out as a leader or seeking to polish your leadership skills, this show is for you. So come on in, I want to say hi to you and welcome you to the show. I got some people tuned in already. Got some folks tuning in. Great to see you. Hello and good morning. And hi, Simone. Good to see you as well. So how about Dr. Jamie? Well, Dr. Jamie is most recently identified as one of the top 10 leadership coaches to watch in the American Reporter. Whoop, whoop. Jamie has 20 years of experience guiding individuals, leaders, and organizations through change. She's an expert in organization and executive assessments. Actually, some really cool assessments on our website, so definitely check that out. She is a guru at workplace culture change as well as leadership development. I want to give a warm welcome to Dr. Jamie. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. So glad to have you on the show. And hi, Robin. Good to see you too, tuning in. So for those of you who are tuning in an hour later, don't be shy. Say hi, have your comments, your questions. We want to help you thrive, my friends. Absolutely. Come on in and step into leadership because it's not just for those certain people.
It's absolutely not. It's leadership is for everybody and anybody that wants to lead.
That's right. And true story, I thought I was a great leader and I was terrible.
That happens sometimes too. That's
so
true.
If you think you're awesome, you might want to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Right.
I just want to know, Jamie, what got you into the type of work you do? And first of all, maybe letting people know what type of work you do, because we have some really exciting conversation about, the type of international work you do with organizations.
Yeah.
And help, leadership, either emerging or seasoned leaders evolve. So tell us a little bit about that and why you chose that.
That's a great question. Well, actually, I completed my doctorate in clinical psychology a million years ago, and I find psychology fascinating. I love psychopathology. I love understanding behavior and how to help people to change. Mm-hmm. But I found that was not a path for me. I did not. And this is very relevant to what we're talking about today. I did not get energy from engaging in therapy. That was a very draining experience for me. And so while I really loved psychology, it was not the path for me. I had a wonderful opportunity to move into the space of organization development, leadership development, and I have not looked back since. It spoke to me. It fit my personality, which we'll talk about today, I think. And so I'm thrilled to be so lucky to be able to do this as my job now, and my full-time focus is on this kind of work. And we work with organizations across the country. I work with some international folks as well, as you mentioned, and really helping them in all sorts of ways, and mostly focusing on helping to develop their leadership capacity, whether that's for one single leader or an entire group of leaders in an organization. And one of the reasons I like focusing on leaders and leadership both because it helps the individual to feel so much more confident about what they're doing and to really to really maximize their potential and their impact.
Right.
But it's critical to organizational culture change, right? I mean, it's critical.
And we're seeing it too.
Right.
I mean, we're seeing the repercussions, and no offense to anybody out there, but you know what I'm talking about. For years, we have put TD, talent development, on the side. And
absolutely,
we're now having to eat crow, if you will, or deal with the repercussions of that decision. Now, at the time organizations made that decision, well, we don't have the money, and it's yet another economic downturn. Seemed like an endless cycle of economic, hey, guys and gals, and those I don't want to identify. This is the way life is. This is the way of business. It's always going to be cyclical. And if you allow that to drive whether or not you're developing the people within your organization, long term, that's going to bite you. So, hello, great resignation.
Yes. The best way to stop the loss of good talent is to invest in your managers and leaders. Absolutely. They are critical.
Quit who?
They quit their bosses. Absolutely. And so I couldn't agree with you more that investment in talent development, in supporting the growth of the people in your organization should be number one on your list in terms of where you focus your resources.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Simone just congratulated on using the I do not get energy from. Yes, because that is very important, finding our zone of genius. And through the work you do, I have the zone of genius thing. That's kind of where my sweet spot is. And that's what I get the energy to do, is helping people thrive and work in their zone of genius, living in that space that they feel fulfilled. And a part of what you do is helping leaders understand, hey, what is my zone of genius? And the purpose of our conversation today is to understand, guess what? Anybody can lead.
Anybody can lead. Absolutely. And I love that term, zone of genius. It's really, where do you feel comfortable? Where can you leverage your strengths, but also where do you feel good and get energy from what you're doing? And when you put all that together, what are you passionate about? What are you excited about? What do you enjoy? And understanding or knowing, I know a whole bunch about psychopathology, but that in and of itself, that expertise isn't going to make it more energizing for me to do therapy, which is not it's not a good fit for what brings me energy.
Right. It's so important for everyone to find what gives them energy. Now, in a given day, chances are probably you'll encounter task or administrative type work that may not give you energy. It may drain you.
Yeah.
But the idea here is not to have that be the predominant experience in your work or your personal life. You don't want to be constantly being pulled away from that which is natural to you, away from your gifts, away from your strengths.
Absolutely.
But we digress a little bit. So I want to address this myth that you have to be an influential leader or a certain personality or have charisma to be effective at what you do in leadership.
Yeah, there's a lot of myths out there about what makes a good leader, and that we know a lot about what leads to leadership effectiveness. And I'd be eager to hear from anybody that's on the call today, on here today, that if you have any beliefs that you think discourage people from going into leadership or that hold them back, I'd love to hear what those are. But certainly, I think there's one of the basic ones is that people are, born to be a leader, and that your leaders are born, not made, right? And I think that's a pervasive myth in our society. It's how we even decide who we promote into leadership oftentimes, right? They're a natural leader. And leadership is it's not a personality. It's not a genetic condition. It's not something you're born with. It is a set of skills. Leadership is a behavior, or it's a set of skills and behavior that you engage in that actually connects with and influences other people. So That's the way that I think about leadership, and I think is a valuable way to think about how do you impact other people as a leader.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, it's very interesting because in some of the work that I do, a lot of the work that I do, I use some assessments myself, one of them being a DISC-based assessment, which is, I think, very robust model to work with, because people are able, one, to remember the thing. I mean, Myers-Briggs is great, but how many dashes?
There's 60. Yes, too many.
Nobody can remember that, so therefore they don't use it. But we want to make sure people are getting the value out of the experience. So I use the DISC-based model, which has been around for some time and fairly robust. But it's interesting because we get people who think, well, I should be a D, which is a driver, is a very driven personality, a very dominant personality. And they're so disappointed when they're not a D. It's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about that. Because in fact, when you think about the history of leadership, and that's what makes me have these myths to begin with, because we have had this paradigm, this leadership paradigm that's been pervasive for many, many years.
Yes.
And it's not that it, quote unquote, worked the best.
Right. Absolutely.
It's not something that really honestly worked well. It didn't. It was just, well, let's face it, no offense to anyone, white male, dominant, driven, very archaic model, very hierarchical model. Right. Was not necessarily the best model, did not necessarily work very well, in fact, and many generations put up with it. They did. They actually put up with it. So, and they don't want to admit that.
No.
They don't want to admit that, but now that paradigm is shifting. And shifting at a more, I don't have to say publicly known level. So now we're understanding that that model doesn't work.
Right.
So what does work? And I share with people, it really doesn't matter what your natural persona happens to be. You can, to your point, learn how to lead. It is a skill.
Yes, it is a skill. It is. And I absolutely agree that command and control, that belief that a leader must be this powerful individual who has the answers, who can take control and tell people where they should go. And it's not only a myth that those things are effective, but also it's wrong. And that's been shown over and over and again in the research, that those are not effective ways to engage and get the best out of the folks that you lead. So I absolutely agree. Everybody, no matter what your personality style, because I do have that background as a psychologist, I do lean into personality quite a bit in my coaching and the work that I do. In that, understanding what your natural comfort zone is, what your natural tendencies are, where you feel most aligned, helps you to understand where you can lean in and use those strengths. Use those things that feel most natural to you, but it also helps you to understand where are those places that you can build some skills to round out the picture, as well as where are there places that you need scaffolding, and that is, where are there places that leaning into or trying to fix something that is not a strength for you or is not natural for you is not going to help you to be more effective.
Now that's something I'd like to pause on, because a lot of people find that surprising. They find that, oh, well, shouldn't I fix myself? Shouldn't I be perfect? No. That's not the point.
No.
In fact, trying to be perfect, anytime, whether you're I would have to say a titled leader. I say everybody is a leader, particularly if you're a parent, you're leading little ones. So, but everyone is a leader. People just don't necessarily recognize that they are, but everyone is. But if you're a titled leader, trying to be perfect is an absolute disaster.
Absolutely.
It leads to a lot of the things that you just talked about, that dissonance. You're not connecting with people. You're not a real person. And if people cannot relate to who you are, whether you're a title leader or not, that will hurt you in your career, in your performance, in your ability to work with teams and other people and develop rapport.
Absolutely. So that vulnerability and that level of humbleness that you can bring to the table to say, I'm not perfect and I can't be perfect. It's not possible. And that's okay that I'm not perfect. As a matter of fact, as an effective leader, again, whether you have a formal title or not, by engaging others and facilitating others' thinking and growth and helping to empower them, you don't have to have the answers. You really shouldn't be contributing the answers, but instead it's helping others to get there.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that, because one of the things I ask, because I do coach quite a few people on the DISC spectrum that would be an S or C dominant, and these people are believe in expertise. Expertise is very important, detail oriented. They want to be the subject matter experts. And when they're stepping into leadership, I said, that's great. You want to go into leadership. Are you okay with not being a subject matter expert anymore? And they're like, what? I thought that would be necessary for leadership. No. People, but don't have to be the expert anymore.
It gets in the way.
It does.
Yeah. It can get in the way. I work with a lot of leaders. I work with, particularly I lean into and work with the folks in the tech industry, a lot of engineers. And while it's critical for them to have some understanding of the work that's being done in their team, I have to work with them to help them move away from that sense that they should be that technical expert. That they need to actually, an effective leader really puts their team out there as the subject matter experts. They are not the subject matter expert and should not be positioning themselves to be the subject matter expert if they're going to be a really effective leader. I think for folks on that C and S side, if we're talking about the DISC, the preference tends to be for those individuals. A comfort zone is about feeling like they know what to expect, having a sense of control over the unknown. And so I think that's why we tend to see that that desire to, I need to know it all so that I can know what to do and what to say.
I can make the right decision.
And so I can make the right decision. And effective leadership is leaning into not knowing, and that's okay. And saying, we're not going to have all the answers. We're not going to have all the data, but we have to move forward.
Right.
So helping folks, though, to understand, given what your natural style is, what your natural tendencies are, how do you use that to be effective in leading other people? And somebody that's an S on the DISC, for example, they're naturally nurturing, and they tend to care very much about other people.
They're actually really good leaders.
They're very good leaders. They can be natural servant leaders, meaning that they tend to be drawn to that style of leadership, which we know is extremely effective in terms of outcomes for organizations. And so I think they really can relate to that approach of leadership. But just like anybody, they can struggle with sometimes holding people accountable or dealing with some of the
tougher side of leadership, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So I'd love to hear from anybody tuning in now or later on when you're watching the replay. What are your roadblocks when it comes to maybe thinking about either emerging leader, or if you're already a leader, what are you struggling with? Is it something you're not seeing that's effective, or do you think your team is all at cross purposes and just crazy, or what is going on? And sometimes that's a generational challenge. Sometimes when you're leading someone of a very, very different generation, you might be thinking, what is wrong with these people? Why do they want me to be all emotional, or we're just here to get things done, right? So and that's what I hear a lot from my D's.
It's true. The D's, just like anybody else, we all have the things that we can really use, our strengths. So D's are okay jumping out in front and taking charge.
But they struggle with Brett's brought up right here. He mentioned Brett Powell is tuning in. Thank you, Brett, from YouTube. How much should we worry about showing weaknesses?
Yeah.
And so that's a great question. There's a balance. So what I tell people is this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Jamie. Don't bring in your dirty laundry to work.
Yes.
Basically, if you can't share it with your grandmother, don't bring it to work.
Right.
So, as far as sharing weaknesses, though, one of the things I encourage every leader to do is be very authentic about who you are and maybe some blind spots that you have. When you're more effective, your team can support you much more effectively when they know of some areas that you just don't naturally lean into. So let's just say you are more of a people person and you're more of an I on the spectrum. You love people first, but maybe details aren't your strong point.
That's me.
Hey, no worries, because you have a team to help you with that.
Yes.
On the flip side, maybe you're a C, which is someone who's very detail oriented, but on the people side, maybe not so much. So then you might want to say, just like one of my clients and I talked about yesterday, hey, asking people to chime in and go, we really haven't talked about this, or next time maybe we can talk about something personal before the meeting. Just allowing that open feedback and setting up a safe environment for people to share their thoughts without judgment is critical, no matter what style you are. And I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Absolutely. I think that showing weakness is actually a strength. It showcases your comfort. It showcases confidence. It shows that you have courage, and it resonates with people quite a bit. They can connect with you more if you're open and honest and in touch with your own weaknesses or areas where we aren't strong, right? We all have those that we're...
I don't like calling them weaknesses either. They're just not natural areas for you.
They're just not natural, right? And so I both in terms of the impact on the relationship, I highly recommend it. But also, as you said, Erin, that it helps that your team then knows, okay, they don't have those detail-oriented skills. I can jump in and I can be a support. And that's where that scaffolding... I'll use myself as an example. I am not detail oriented at all by nature. And yes, I can do it if I have to. But if we go back to the idea of energy, in order for me to engage in skills that require me to be detail oriented, I have to use a lot of energy. And while I can do that, it may not be the best use of my contribution to the organization. And instead, identifying somebody or some way that we can address the details that need to be addressed without draining my energy in the process might be a better choice for the team or for the organization. And so that's where we go back to that idea of, I do not recommend, and with the folks that I work with when I'm coaching, I don't work with them on fixing those quote unquote weaknesses. It's ensuring that there isn't a characteristic or a behavior that's getting in their way so much so that it could hold them back from succeeding or it's derailing their career. Then we're going to, what I like to say is we're going to smooth out the edges there. But, right. But if you're not, like myself, I'm not naturally detail oriented. It's never going to be energizing. It's never going to be something I'm going to be great at. It's not a good use of my time, nor is it from an organizational standpoint, a good use of the organization's approach or resources to try to push somebody to do those things.
Basically put you a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
You're trying to make someone who they aren't. People have a natural style and natural proclivities in certain areas, and that's great.
Yes.
And I'll be perfectly honest. Some of you are tuned into Career Coffee Chat show before, know this and heard this story, but I used to be a terrible leader. I was a fixed-minded individual. I was not growth-minded. And I thought everybody should be the same. I had no idea about work styles, personality types, none of that. And it wasn't until much later in my career that I was given this information. I was just like, oh my gosh, I've been such a jerk.
But you had the realization. So that's good. That's great.
I was like, why was I thinking everybody should be just like me? Like, that's the best way to be. But that's a D for you. I can say that because that's my dominant style. But it was, you would think, driven person, that's a great leader. Well, actually, no. I'm not, unless they're very aware. Because they be very abrasive, they be very abrupt, they be too blunt, they don't necessarily listen.
That is a huge, huge challenge.
Which is important for leadership. So we keep going on this, obviously, but what we don't want to do is say you need to be perfect, which is not true. And it's very interesting. I want to get to Natalie's. Natalie, also tuning in from LinkedIn, has a question. But before we get there, I want to mention something that I talked with one of my clients yesterday.
Yeah.
And because she wants to move up in leadership, and she is more of a driven personality, more forthcoming with her thoughts.
Yes.
So, again, just smoothing out the edges a little bit. And then I shared with her, I was like, hey, the truth is, after years and years of research, years and years of being in this space of career advancement and impact and leadership, what really matters for people to move up is not necessarily how much you know,
or
how great a job you do.
Nothing to do with that, right?
It has a lot more to do with how personable you are and how much people like working with you.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yes.
If you want to move up, ladies and gentlemen, those who don't want to identify, work on that.
100%. Yeah, I think that is the area that I focused on, or that it becomes an issue in my coaching more often than not, is that I have folks that are high performers, excellent executors. They are driven, they're ambitious, they get the job done, and I have to tell them that this is not what's going to get you to the next level. They're
shocked.
They're shocked. And they may be even a little scared because, wait a minute, this is what I know. This is what I've learned how to do. This is how I've been reinforced through my whole career. And, I always say the game changes. And when you get to a point of leadership, when you're in those more formal titles of leadership, frontline manager, frontline supervisor, you're still in execution mode. But the farther away you get from the front line, the less it is about you being the driver of execution. And it's far more about you having a good amount of influence on others. If we go back to the leadership as a social process, those individuals who are effective in leadership and tend to be promoted are those that are effectively able to build and cultivate and use their influence, and not in a dirty schmoozy way.
Not a manipulative way.
No. But are you able to connect? No, that doesn't work either. That's a different problem. But are you able to connect with others? Do you listen? Do you care about what happens to them? Do you develop and grow others? Are you able to position them to be in the spotlight? Some of those kinds of things. Those are the things that actually are more likely to help you to grow in your own career. And it seems kind of paradoxical, but it's very much true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Natalie has a great question, so I definitely want to get to her question. She says, does this style lead to a parenting style leadership? So great question. Are we babysitting people? So it's very interesting you mentioned that, Natalie, because one of my clients, who will remain unnamed, but she is a very senior level in leadership within a big pharma company. And she came to me a couple months ago and she was like, what is wrong with this certain generational demographic? I feel like I
hear that a lot.
I parent these people? What is going on? And I was like, well, yes,
Yeah.
you do. Because of a host of social, societal, cultural reasons and digital influences that we won't get into right now, these younger generation have a different expectation of your interaction with them.
Mm-hmm.
They have a bit different expectation of what that interaction looks like.
Very
and they
different.
also don't have the same cultural norms that you do.
Yes. Yes.
So it
Absolutely.
may seem like you're parenting them.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you take that out, is leadership parenting? Well, not really, but kind of.
There are some parallels. There are definitely some parallels.
Yeah.
And I think that people can be just as challenged when parenting and using the skills that are effective there as in leadership. I think that both parenting and in leadership, it's about really leaning into and supporting the other people's growth and development. And so if you as a leader are too focused on yourself, you're far less likely to be successful. You're not as likely to build the relationships you need to be successful, have the team that's as capable. And so in that respect, mentoring, development, it can feel to some like parenting, and there's some parallels there. Right. Also, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I can talk forever, and I know I'm very passionate about this topic. I'm like, oh boy, I've got all kinds of information. No, please continue.
So yeah, I think that there's also though on the kind of, if you go to the extreme end, I see a lot of leaders who become micromanagers, and I see a lot of parenting. Way back in the day, I used to work in a space where I worked with college students, and that helicopter parenting was a huge issue where the parents were far too involved. And I think the same goes for whether you're talking about parents or leaders. There's a support, there's setting them up for success, but also giving them space, autonomy, empowering them, giving them what they need so that they can go out and be successful. Right. And that's whether you're in a formal leadership position or not, that's how you gain followership, and that's how you create success as somebody who wants to be in a leadership role.
Yeah, it's interesting paradigm that the more you lift others up, the more they lift you up. Yes. That's just how the human social context works. I mean, that's how we work as human beings, based on our evolution thus far. 200 years from now, maybe different. Based on evolution thus far, that's how it works. So the more you give to others, the more they will give back to you. When we can get off on the parenting train is when it gets too personal and gets too emotional, and then we start dabbling in things that are really none of our business. And honestly, in parenting, you can go down that rabbit trail and not really be helpful either. And it's tough. It's tough when you care about people. You develop a rapport. When do you let them go? When do you let them off the rails a little bit to explore and maybe fail? And some of my clients who are leaders are not so comfortable with the whole failure word. No. And we need to understand, okay, what can we do to fail in small increments so people learn on their own without being micromanaged or told what to do, which is not a useful development experience. Right. I'm seeing too, let me know what you think, Jamie, is more leader as coach or coach as leader. Being something that is very powerful in the corporate space and developing and more of a burgeoning knowledge for leaders to develop that skill.
Yes, absolutely. I say every single individual that I work with as a leader that coaching is the most powerful leadership skill. It's a skill set. It involves a number of skills, but if you can master coaching, you will be successful because it encompasses the characteristics, the qualities, the skills that you need to really connect with and influence and motivate others. And that's, leadership in its best form is facilitating other people's success.
Absolutely.
And that's what coaching
being
is.
able to be that, I wouldn't say impartial, but more objective when necessary, particularly those people who may struggle to be the tough side of leadership. Well, it's not really being mean. That's not the point, but it's having that objective stance and being non-judgmental. And we could keep going. I think we need to write a book, Jamie.
I love it. Yes.
I think we need to write a book. So Melinda has had some information here. I'll read really quickly. Thank you, Melinda, for sharing. She said there was a recent promotion and currently there's a lot of jealousy and envy towards a teammate. We had a meeting off the record to express thoughts. However, it appears that creating a pact mentally with some, which is causing hurt for the one that was promoted. This promotion wasn't celebrated for this teammate without harsh feelings. Now, how can a leader, can you turn this around and be a more positive move for the team? So it sounds like, Melinda, if I'm correct, that someone who up here got promoted and some other peers didn't take that so well. Perhaps they thought they should have got the role or what have you. So it really wasn't celebrated like it should have been. And how can a leader turn that around to be more a positive move? Yeah, that's a tough one. When a group, someone within that group gets promoted, it can cause hard feelings, particularly if other people, everybody thinks like, I used to do, I'm a great leader.
not everybody
happen actually. I had people go to the person who made the decision to create a leadership role for me at the time when I did transition from being a steamroller into a leadership role, which I did in 9 months, like a pregnancy. Boop, but I had some people who railed against the machine, if you will, and they were up in arms. How could you dare do that? I mean, I have been here so much longer. Of course, they're not leadership material.
Right.
And I had invested the time and energy to become, skill. I went from someone who was crap at leadership to someone who was really good at it.
Yeah.
If I can do it, you can do it. And Melinda said, yes, that's correct. So my summation was correct. Thoughts, Jamie?
Well, I think that there's a lot of dynamics here. So first, I think that there is a perception oftentimes that because of seniority or having technical expertise, that one should be put into a leadership role. And as somebody who's in the space of talent management, talent development, I strongly do not believe that that's the reason somebody should be promoted. There's somewhat of a sense of they deserve it because they've been here longest or they know the most. And those characteristics of being here the longest or knowing the most do not necessarily translate into effective leadership. Now, can those individuals learn the skills of leadership? Absolutely. But in and of itself, being here the longest is not, or having that technical expertise. So that can be one thing that happens when you see the resentment among peers. It is a challenge when you are moved into a role that a peer who you previously maybe even had a relationship with wanted, and they don't, they're not supportive of this move. Going back to what leadership is, it's a process of social influence. And so looking for opportunities to repair that relationship and build the relationships within the team that you are now or the individual is now leading is going to be critical. Because, and I say this so frequently to folks that I coach, because you have authority does not mean that anybody will lead you or follow you. It just does not make you the leader. It makes you somebody who can boss people around. And unless you have their buy-in to your role and where you're going to take them and how you'll help them to get there, unless you have their buy-in, you'll hit walls over and over and over again. So investing the time and energy into those relationships, how can we work through this, looking to really bring that person into conversations, showcase your appreciation of what they bring to the table. Exactly. These are some ways that you get to, smooth out that relationship if that's necessary.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. I experienced that myself. Not exactly a peer situation. I was senior on the team,
Yeah.
but I did have team members who were in a position of resentment for various reasons, mainly set up by my boss at the time. Thanks, dude.
Oh.
But, I had to fix it. And I could not take the point of injured victim. That was not going to work. I actually had to own their pain, if you will, or accept that and acknowledge it, even if it was not founded in truth.
Absolutely.
So when you are in that position, having that one-on-one candid conversation, calling out the elephant in the room, the topic that might be painful, saying, look, you're a valued colleague of mine, and how you feel about what has transpired matters to me. I care about you. And it's not just because, I want everything to be perfect. It's because I genuinely respect you as a human being. And your contributions to the team, your contributions to the company are tremendous. And then calling out, what are they great at? They're a subject matter expert. Your technical expertise, you have a lot of value contributions here. And the decision was made for these reasons, but I want to hear what you have to say and what your reservations are, and know that, there aren't any hard feelings here. We're not going to walk away with burning bridges. Maybe we can't solve or patch up this, immediately, but at least want to have the conversation and know that I respect you. And that is where it can be started, and it needs to be started by the individual. The overall leader, I don't know your thoughts about this, Jamie, but the next tier up leadership, intervening may or may not go as planned.
Right. Yeah.
So it really, the hard conversation needs to be had by the person who recently got promoted.
Absolutely. I think that it's very important for the next level up leader, whoever that is, to showcase support for the individual that they put into place. And I have worked in situations where that hasn't always happened. And so you have a team who is maybe a little bit upset or resentful, or some people on the team because of the promotion. And then the more senior leader, it doesn't really have that person's back either. And that puts that individual in a really extremely tough position. But it still does come back to patching up the relationship, looking for ways to elevate that individual, that peer's skill set, putting them in the spotlight where you can, supporting their growth, expressing your appreciation for what they bring to the team in order to showcase that you are there to help them as their leader. And that's going to it might take a little while, but that's going to be what it takes to.
Right. There are no guarantees, just know there are no guarantees. Some people have their own belief systems that are sabotaging them, and ultimately it will mean their attrition from the team eventually.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they're just purely poor performers, and typically it's because they have a roadblock internally for themselves.
Yes.
And you don't necessarily want to boost up and shine poor performance, and that's not what we're looking to do.
Right.
There is a balance, and then helping these individuals the best we can with the tools we have. But, we're not magicians.
Absolutely.
Now, Michael's got a great question, too, from YouTube. He says, how can you be a leader without a title? I want to prove myself as a leader in an effort to position myself for the next available promotion. Good point, Michael.
Yes.
Everybody's a leader. No title required.
No title required.
Absolutely. So, I encourage you to lean a little bit on that, learning how to coach. A leader is coach. So many resources out there and information. What are your thoughts, Jamie? What else can Michael do?
I think that thinking about how do you connect with others, how do you build relationships, how do you support others' success? These are the things that a good leader does, that an effective leader does. And as a peer on the team, you can be doing that as well. Supporting your teammates, showing them that you're there for them. Those are ways that you can showcase that you have what it takes to be an effective leader. I think that also when those decisions are being made about growth and promotion, they're going to say, who has the ability to inspire and motivate people to come together and achieve things, as a group. And so where you have that opportunity to say, hey, let's get together and let's make something happen. You don't have to have a formal title to support the group in driving towards goals.
That's absolutely correct. Also, learn what's important to your leadership. Now, This is just strategy 101. Okay, so anybody tuning in, this is a great tactic. Once you know what is important to those people who are making the decisions, who gets promoted and who does not, that's when you can start to position yourself to do either special projects or support work in the area by which is important to those individuals. So let's just say a certain initiative is key to them. Maybe you have a 10% extra in your week you're willing to donate towards that cause, or maybe it's a project, maybe you have a skill in that area. You want to, help showcase your abilities. Or if you really have the bandwidth, taking on a special project is also a great way to get noticed. Those people, and in all the coaching that I've done, the people who move up the fastest tend to be those individuals who are either instrumental or leading special projects that are important to the higher ups.
They get visibility, that they get the face time, absolutely, and or taking on.
I don't want to abuse it.
Right? No. But being intentional about can I make a difference? Can I have an impact while doing something that's important to my leader or even their leader? So absolutely, being thoughtful and intentional about what do you do to help showcase your skills.
Get noticed and stand out. Now, here's when it all falls apart and it becomes a complete disaster. So, don't overcommit. Only commit to what you know you can do and complete. If it's a stretch, if it's something that you're like, gosh, I really want to do this, but I just flat out don't have the time, bandwidth, mental energy, whatever it is, or if it's not in your strength zone, please don't put yourself out there in a position of not being a completer.
Yes.
So true story, a very good friend, she had a rude awakening. She was not promoted into the position she thought she should have gotten because she did all the right things. She was off a million different boards. She was volunteered for all the special projects because of the visibility. She knew enough to say, okay, visibility equals promotion. Not necessarily. She was visible and known as a non-completer. She was always late for every meeting. She never followed up on any action item because she just couldn't. Her plate was covered and run over and it was a mess. So she learned a very valuable lesson the hard way. And she really had to dial back a lot. So there's a balance, right?
Absolutely.
As we mentioned before, it's very important to remember that it's not the person who can do all the things and be an expert that gets promoted.
It's about impact and looking for those places where you can showcase the impact you can have given your unique qualities and characteristics, where your strengths are. And I think that's a great example where somebody stretches themselves too thin and it's hard to see the impact that they're having, or they're not delivering
any impact at all.
Right. And being intentional about where do you need to want to have impact in order to showcase what you can do.
And also doing your best. Now, again, we can set boundaries within reason. Right? If your company or bosses are determined that you're going to do this thing because you've always done this thing and they're not going to let you out of your box, maybe you need to look for employment elsewhere. But we can set our boundaries to say, I'm happy to work on this initiative. This is not where I have the most natural talent. It's over here. Can we have a conversation about the delivery that I can bring to the company, and set a business case for yourself. Also, Michael, that's another thing that a lot of people skip when they're looking for a promotion. make sure you establish a business case that includes how your talents and gifts will be of value to the company.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, particularly based on their strategic vision and what they want to accomplish. So I highly recommend everybody do that. If you're just like, you know what, I'm going to go for that promotion, make sure you have the business case. And that includes not just how awesome you are, but how that awesomeness is going to translate into dollars.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So Hussein, who always has some valuable insights, is thank you for tuning in. Great to see you. He says, when becoming a leader, the matter is no longer for you, but for the people you lead.
Yes. Love that.
As Jack Welch said, love it. So the leader must be human, emotional, firm, brave, and other qualities that leaders need to lead and guide those who lead to achieving goals.
Beautiful.
Love it. Thank you, Hussein. You always have some great pithy comments.
I love it. I love it.
See, y'all need to be doing this show. I could just retire.
It's a great group of folks that you have here.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do have any questions about, hey, I've been a leader for a while, maybe something's not working out so well. If you don't feel comfortable making it first person, you can make third person. It's fine. Or if something you're looking to do to emerge into leadership, we'll be on for a few more minutes. I want to make sure I capture any of your questions or comments before we wrap up the show. Jamie, it's been a huge pleasure collaborating with you today.
I love it. I could talk about this for hours.
I know.
Literally, I will talk about it for hours.
I mean, I love it. I love it because we're helping people live better lives and having better work experience. I mean, what is there not to love about that?
Absolutely. It's both for the individuals who are leading, but the folks that they are leading.
Exactly. You know, coming back to our original, when we kicked off our conversation today and talking about the Great Resignation or the Great Reset. And the Great Resignation is still ongoing, still going strong. The Great Reset will be, ladies and gentlemen, and those who choose not to identify, for some time.
Yeah.
The Great Reset is something that is a complete culture shift in our workplace. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Jamie, particularly with the psychology background and what you know about organizational culture shifts. I mean, it's going to be going on for quite some time because we've got that old paradigm. We're trying to figure out, okay, can we let go of it? What do we need to do? And how do we need to act and behave? And what is the entire structure of how we do business and literally the organizational structure, everything? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Do we give people more autonomy? Is a gig economy? What works? What doesn't? And we know a few things that don't work.
So true. So true. I do see quite a few organizations now that we've over time that are trying to go back to some of the old ways. And it's very natural when you're in the middle of change. Changing organizational culture, changing society's culture, to say, oh, wait a minute, this is a little too much. I don't know how to manage this. It's getting too fuzzy, too chaotic. We got to go back to the way it was. And I hope that on the other side of this, that is we don't kind of backslide into where we were.
Well, it won't work.
It won't work
because people are quitting in droves. I mean, that people are voting with their feet, literally.
Right.
I mean, let me just call it what it is, because I'm blunt.
I love it.
Here we go. Here we go. Oh no, people, we're having a real conversation about this. So, quite frankly, like I mentioned before, way it had always been done, just flat out didn't work. Okay, didn't. We put up with it. Why do we put up with it? Because we want to get paid, but we hated it. We were miserable. I know I was.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think I left corporate? To help fix it. Which, as I learned later, people only want it fixed if they're looking for it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
That's true.
And you don't fix people, by the way. You just guide them and hope that things turn out well. But so I mean, we've been putting up with a expectation of behavior for corporate America and abroad as well that is not sustainable. You cannot, particularly in America, work the number of hours that you work and be productive. Now, how many research and how much study do we really need to do for this to finally get through people's head? You just are not productive. Most people are most productive at about 5 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, here we are. We continue to try to fit it into the old way.
Push,
Right.
do more with less.
Mhm.
Let's lean. I hate it when they abuse the word lean.
Yeah.
Lean is a whole methodology. Stop doing
Yeah.
that. But anyway, let's lean up our organization and then have people wear multiple hats. It doesn't work. Hello.
It doesn't work. And
it doesn't work. And it's not going to be sustainable. So you just can't do it. And don't tell me the bean counters are telling you that you have to do it because all right, here's the deal. Years ago, I worked for a privately held, very reasonably small size company. And one of the things they did during one of the many recessions, of course, there's been 1,000, and everybody's freaking out because there's another one coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be okay. We've done this before.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry. I don't mean callous. I mean, it's not that it's not concerning. It's just that, you're smart. We're smart people. And anyway, so one of the many recessions, we faced the potential layoff, or can we take a temporary pay cut to keep everybody?
Yeah.
And guess what they did, which was amazing? They put it out to vote
Mm-hmm.
to the people who work there. It's your salary. You make a decision. Guess what?
I'm going to say they voted to take the pay cut.
Take the pay cut and keep everybody. That's
Yeah.
right. Now,
Very
that
powerful.
is an example of really good leadership.
Yeah.
That really is. And that's an example of doing something radically different. You just didn't see that. You just didn't. I mean, you've heard about pay cuts, but they're also doing layoffs, and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that there aren't tough times and tough decisions need to be made. That's not what I'm saying. I'm also saying that can we start thinking a little bit differently about how we do things?
Yes.
And how business is run? And it's okay to do that. I think it's timely.
Hopefully that the pandemic and the rapid shift that we all made in the way that we were doing everything, but especially working, can be a lesson that we can do things differently. And it may not be perfect. It may not be right the first time, but you can do things in a way that fits others, that can be fulfilling for them, and you can get great results at the same time. It's just learning what that looks like for you and your organization.
And learning how to let go a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of fear-based leaders, a lot of people are afraid, well, if I'm not standing over these people, they're not going to do their work.
Right.
I have news for you. You standing there has nothing to do with their productivity.
It actually reduces
it.
It's going down if you're standing over them.
Absolutely. It is so interesting to see that because we know for a fact that if you manage by outcomes versus whether, if you want to stand in the corner on your head and listen to yoga music while you do your work, I don't care.
Right.
I really don't care.
Yeah.
How it's done is fairly immaterial unless that's a part of the outcome itself. But we can be better than this. We can progress. And I know it's scary too. I know it's scary. So I also want to speak to those people who are just a little bit overwhelmed with everything being different and everything that's quite uncertain out there because it creates some maybe impetus for fear. Just bite off what you can.
Mm-hmm.
And also have firm boundaries about reducing the noise from sources that, like we were talking before we started the show today about, I have firm boundaries around news watching, social media time.
What you need to reduce some of that anxiety about what's going on, and absolutely. But that fear-based approach, it leads to all sorts of behaviors from a leadership perspective that are not effective, that actually have the opposite effects of what somebody wants.
Massive attrition issues. So, and since that's top of mind, hopefully people know that and can be emboldened and empowered by what we've talked about today. Thank you so much, Jamie, that anyone can be a leader. It does not matter, if you have charisma, or you're an extrovert, or what personality type you have, or what your work style is. None of that is relevant. It is a learned trait. Hey, if I can learn how to be a leader, you can learn how to be a leader. No, it's terrible.
Love it.
But it is such a pleasure having you on the show, Jamie.
Thank
and
you
thank
so
you
much.
for all of you who are tuning in today. It's great to see you. And if you're watching the replay later, reach out to us if you got a question. Maybe it's something to do with personal, your personal career path or professional journey. Maybe it's something for your organization. Whatever that is, reach out to us. Be sure to connect with Jamie on LinkedIn. She's a great resource, and so is her group as well of coaches. And again, huge pleasure. Love to see all of you. Thank you, my friends. And until next time, keep elevating. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in on the Career Coffee Chat podcast. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to reach out to me. My email is coacheurban@gmail.com or tweet at coacheurban, Instagram coach.eurban, or reach out to my Facebook group, Elevate Your Career. I'd love to learn more about you, hear your insights, and what questions you have. You can find out more about me at coacheurban.com. And don't forget, please do reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Erin Urban. Until next time, cheers. Here's to caffeinating your career.